Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Fiona here. We are in my kitchen today. Oh yeah, because I'm going to be showing you guys how I make my puff puff. I posted a photo on Instagram, I think 2 weeks ago, 2-ish weeks ago, and the love was real. I was like, what? Fellow Nigerians or just foodies in general asking for how I make the puff puff that I made. So I promised I would share my recipe. For those of you who for the craziest reason do not know what puff puff is, puff puff is a Nigerian dessert. Fellow Nigerians, hey! It is a Nigerian dessert, and the best way I can describe it is a ball of warm, doughy, fluffy, donut-like amazingness. So let's get straight to the recipe. I hope you guys enjoy it.
So for this recipe, you will need 3 cups of plain flour, followed by 3/4 of a cup of sugar. I don't like my puff puff to be too sweet, guys, so for some of you this may not be sweet enough, but you can always roll the puff puff in some sugar afterwards if it's not. Then I follow this up with 3.5 teaspoons of dry instant yeast to help the puff puff mix rise, and finally some optional ingredients: 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Oh, and I also added a pinch of salt. Once all of the ingredients are in the bowl, I give them a quick mix to help evenly distribute them, and then I go in with a cup of warm water. In total for this mix I use 1.5 cups of warm water, but I like to start off with less so that I don't overdo it and end up with a watery consistency. After a minute or two of molding and squeezing the mix with my hands, I end up with this sludgy consistency, which isn't too thick or too thin, and this is exactly how you want it. Now that the mix is ready to be set aside, I reach for some cling film. You can also use some foil if that's what you have, and I cover the top of the bowl with it and then cover that with a tea towel. Then I place the bowl in the oven and I set it to 50 degrees on the fan setting and let this sit for an hour so that the mixture can rise. Okay, so now on to the fun part, frying the puff puff. As you can see, after an hour the mix has increased in size and is now very fluffy in texture. What I'm going to show you next before I start frying are the 2 techniques I use to fry the puff puff and get as close to a round shape as possible. So the first technique is what I call the thumb down technique. For this I scoop the mix into my hand using the side of the bowl, and then I turn my hand upside down, i.e. with my thumb facing downwards, and squeeze the mix through the gap between my thumb and my index finger. I'm going to do this again in slow-mo. So scooped the mix into my hand, turned my hand with my thumb facing downwards, and pushed the mix through the gap between my thumb and index finger. The second technique is pretty much the same as the first, but this time my thumb is facing upwards, and I simply clench my fist and squeeze the mix through the bottom of my palm. I'll play that again for you in slow-mo. I will say I chop and change between both techniques, but they're pretty much as good as each other. Now that you've got the technique down, the final part is super easy. Set your stove to a medium heat and then pour enough oil in a pan, and once the oil is hot you can get to adding your mix. Do make sure you have a fork on deck so that you can use it to flip the balls over once they start to brown on one side. Then after a few minutes, and when the balls are a light to medium brown color on both sides, transfer them onto a kitchen towel using a sieve, which will help to get rid of any excess oil. And guys, that is it. You have officially made puff puff. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching. Do let me know if you want to see more food recipes. I'm happy to share, and do feel free to check out my previous videos. So till next time, bye.